Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're diving into something that I know a lot of you are curious about. Um, how do those online influencers actually build audiences and make money, especially when they aren't just like relying on entertainment? I think a lot of you are probably trying to figure that out too.
It is a great question. And honestly, the game has changed a lot.
Right.
It's not all about going viral with a dance video anymore.
Right.
There are actually some pretty sophisticated strategies at play.
For sure. And we actually stumbled upon this case study that blew my mind.
Oh, yeah.
It's about this young entrepreneur, Iman Gadzhi, and he built a multi-million-dollar business using YouTube.
Wow.
The really interesting part is that he did this by focusing on what he calls a micro-personal brand.
Okay.
So it's about attracting a smaller, hyper-engaged audience that really values what he has to offer.
What's fascinating is this approach is actually perfectly aligned with how algorithms are working these days. Platforms are actually favoring smaller channels now.
Wait, seriously, smaller channels are getting an advantage.
Yeah, think about it.
Okay.
Platforms like YouTube, Instagram, even LinkedIn.
Right.
They all need to keep people engaged.
Right.
If it's the same big names are always at the top,
Right.
it gets boring.
For sure.
So they're actually tweaking things to give new creators a better chance at getting discovered.
Interesting.
I even saw a quote from a YouTube team member saying they're working on giving new creators an unfair advantage.
Wow. Okay. So this deep dive is for all of us, whether you're dreaming of millions of followers or just a tight-knit community that really connects with what you do.
Right.
Gadzhi breaks his strategy down into 3 pillars.
Yeah.
And the first one is all about content.
And he takes a pretty unique stance on content.
Okay.
He believes it's your most powerful competitive advantage. But hold on.
Okay.
He's not talking about the usual stuff like fancy thumbnails or clickbaity titles.
Right.
Those do have their place.
Right. So it's got to be deeper than that.
Yeah.
What's his secret sauce when it comes to creating content?
He goes all in on the why behind your content.
The why.
Why are you creating this? What's the message you want to share with the world? He believes everyone, and I mean everyone, has something valuable to offer.
Okay.
You don't need to be a world-renowned expert to start.
Okay. I like that. So where do we even begin? How do we find that thing that makes our content unique and valuable?
Gadzhi actually started his journey at just 15 years old by simply documenting his experience as he learned digital marketing.
Okay.
And get this.
Yeah.
He started getting paid clients while he was still learning, just by sharing his authentic process.
So he was basically learning in public, and people were attracted to that rawness and realness.
Exactly. It's the power of documentation as a content format. People are naturally drawn to behind-the-scenes stuff.
Right.
They want to see how things work,
Yeah.
how people figure things out, especially if they're facing similar challenges.
I can totally see that. It's like we're all on this journey of learning and growing. And seeing someone else navigate those ups and downs can be super relatable. And it also makes the expert seem more human, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Take the example Gadzhi uses about the farmland influencer.
Okay.
This woman built a huge following simply by documenting her journey of buying and developing her first plot of land.
Wow.
No fancy production, just real raw footage of her experience.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal of this. It's like you don't have to have it all figured out to start creating content. You can literally just document your process as you go.
Exactly.
But how do you make sure that content actually resonates with people and gets them hooked?
Gadzhi takes this idea of documentation a step further with what he calls the content cycle.
Okay.
Now, instead of focusing on the 5 specific stages he outlines,
Okay.
let's look at the big idea behind it.
Okay.
It all starts with identifying your conflict.
Conflict.
What are those personal struggles and experiences that have shaped who you are and what you believe in?
So you're saying that my messy life is actually my biggest asset as a creator? Because that's where the good stories come from, right?
Exactly. Your conflict is what makes you relatable.
Okay.
It's what gives your content depth and emotional resonance. Think about Gadzhi himself.
Okay.
He talks very openly about his challenging childhood, seeing his mom struggle financially.
Right.
That experience fueled his drive to succeed, and it attracts an audience who resonates with those values.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So it's not about pretending to be perfect or having it all figured out.
No.
It's about being real and sharing your story in a way that connects with people on a deeper level.
It's about authenticity.
Right.
People can smell BS a mile away.
Yeah.
If you're trying to be someone you're not, it's going to show.
Right.
Gadzhi built his entire brand by just being himself, and that's what people are drawn to.
All right, so let's say I've figured out my conflict and I'm ready to start documenting my journey.
Okay.
Do I need to be on every social media platform? Where do I even start?
That's where the next big question comes in.
All right.
Where do you share all this awesome content?
Right.
The good news is this approach works across any platform.
Okay.
Gadzhi himself built his business on YouTube, but he emphasizes that the principles apply, whether you're on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, even starting a blog.
Wait, seriously, I can use this documentation strategy anywhere. I always thought certain platforms were better for certain types of content.
It's more about finding where your ideal audience hangs out.
Okay.
Remember that farmland influencer?
Yeah.
She could be sharing short behind-the-scenes clips on Instagram stories,
Hmm.
posting longer videos on YouTube showing how she negotiates land deals, or even writing detailed blog posts about soil management.
Right.
It's all about adapting the format to the platform.
Okay, that makes sense.
Hmm.
But even if I'm creating great content and putting it on the right platform, how do I actually get people to see it? I mean, it feels like there's so much noise out there. How do I stand out?
That brings us to Gadzhi's second pillar,
Oh.
packaging. Think of it like this.
Okay.
You can have the most incredible, life-changing information in the world.
Right.
But if you wrap it in dull, boring packaging, no one's going to pay attention.
Yeah. It's all about first impressions, right? I guess in the online world, that means things like your video titles, thumbnails, even those first few seconds that people see.
Yeah.
You got to hook them before they scroll on by.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
Those social media algorithms we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
they're not just randomly showing your stuff to people.
Right.
They're actually testing it on small groups first.
Wait, they're testing it? Like, even if I have 0 followers, my content is still being shown to some people.
Yep. And they're looking at things like click-through rate or CTR,
Ugh.
basically how many people see your title and thumbnail and decide to click.
Right.
They're also looking at retention,
Okay.
meaning how long people actually watch your video.
Gotcha.
If those numbers are good, then the algorithm says, hey, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
Let's show it to more people.
Wow, that's kind of wild. So even if you have a small audience, the algorithm is constantly judging your content and deciding whether to promote it.
Yeah,
So I guess understanding CTR is super important if you actually want to get your stuff seen.
absolutely. You might have the most brilliant video in the world, but if your title is boring and your thumbnail is bland, it's going to get lost in the sea of content.
All right, so how do we nail that packaging? I feel like I'm starting to get overwhelmed with all this technical stuff. Does Gadzhi have any practical tips for actually creating titles and thumbnails that get people to click?
He's got a whole system for it. He focuses heavily on optimizing that first 30 seconds of your video,
Oh, okay.
what he calls the hook.
The hook. Okay.
He even has a bunch of proven hook structures that he uses.
Okay.
And the good news is he shares some of them in his free resource.
Okay, so we don't have to completely reinvent the wheel here. We
Right.
can actually use what's already working.
Yeah.
But let's say we've got a great hook. People are clicking. They're watching. How do we make sure they stick around? I feel like attention spans are shorter than ever these days.
Retention, my friend.
Retention.
Retention is all about delivering on the promise you made in that hook. If your title and thumbnail are all about solving a specific problem, your video better deliver the goods.
Right.
Don't just tease something interesting and then wander off on tangents.
So I guess pacing matters too, right?
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to overload people with too much information at once.
For sure. You need to find that sweet spot,
Right.
keeping it concise while still providing enough depth and value. And don't be afraid to experiment. Look at your analytics and see where people are dropping off in your videos.
Right.
That's valuable feedback.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all this fits together.
Yeah.
We've got the content pace, using documentation to share our unique journey and insights.
Right.
Then we've got the packaging,
Yeah.
crafting those attention-grabbing titles, thumbnails, and hooks that get people to click and keep watching. But something tells me there's more to this whole making money thing, right?
Right, you are. That brings us to Gadzhi's third pillar.
Okay.
And it's the one a lot of people are really curious about. Monetization.
Ah, yes.
The million-dollar question.
Right.
We've built the audience, we've got them hooked,
Yeah.
but how do we actually turn that attention into profit?
Gadzhi is very clear on this point.
Okay.
Building a micro-personal brand isn't about chasing sponsorships or relying on ad revenue alone.
Right. I can see why if you have a smaller, more targeted audience, you need a different approach.
Exactly. It's about creating real value for those people and offering something they're actually willing to pay for.
Mm.
It's about moving beyond just giving away free information and building a sustainable business.
Okay, so what does that actually look like? What are we selling here?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Gadzhi talks about developing your own method.
Method.
It's basically a unique approach or system that solves a specific problem for your audience. So it's not just about sharing random tips and tricks. It's about having a more structured, cohesive way of helping people.
Precisely. And this is what separates those who make a few $1,000s with their personal brand from those who make millions.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How do we go about developing this method? Is there a formula for this too?
It starts with going back to that conflict we talked about earlier.
Right.
What's that core problem you've faced in your own life that you've managed to overcome? That's often the seed of your unique method.
So it's about taking those personal experiences and turning them into a system that others can use to solve similar problems.
You got it. Think about the steps you took,
Yeah.
the strategies you developed, the insights you gained along the way.
Yeah.
That's the raw material for your method.
Okay, let's go back to our farmland influencer example.
Yep.
Maybe her method is a step-by-step system for finding and acquiring undervalued farmland with little to no money down.
Yeah.
She's been through that process herself, so she can now teach others how to do the same.
That's a perfect example. It's specific, it solves a real problem, and it's based on her own experience. That's what makes it valuable and unique.
All right, so let's say we've developed our method.
Okay.
We've got this system that solves a problem and is based on our own experience.
Right.
But how do we actually package it up and sell it to people? What are the options here?
Gadzhi focuses on creating and selling digital products.
Okay.
Think online courses, ebooks,
Yep.
membership communities,
Right.
things like that.
Those make sense. Digital products can be created once and then sold over and over again. Plus, they give you a way to provide ongoing value and build a community around your expertise.
And here's the best part.
Yeah,
Because you've already established yourself as an authority through your content.
right.
Your audience is already primed to invest in your solutions. They know you, they like you, they trust you.
So it's like building a virtuous cycle.
Yeah.
You create valuable content, attract an engaged audience, develop your unique method, and then offer products that help them solve their problems.
It's a win-win for everyone involved.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from finding your conflict, to crafting the perfect hook, to developing your unique method and monetizing it. But I feel like we've only scratched the surface. Is there anything else we should know about building a successful micro-personal brand?
I know. It feels like we've uncovered this whole new world of possibilities here. And honestly, I'm a little intimidated by the idea of creating my own method.
Yeah,
Where do we even start?
it's definitely a big step, but remember, it all comes back to that core conflict and how you overcame it. Let's take a quick detour. Have you ever heard the saying, the best way to learn something is to teach it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I definitely learn things better when I have to explain it to someone else.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of developing your own method.
Right.
It forces you to really understand your own journey,
Mm.
break it down into steps, and find a way to communicate it clearly.
Right.
It's like in the process of teaching others, you become a better expert yourself. That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just about making money, it's actually a powerful way to solidify your own knowledge and become a more credible authority in your niche.
Exactly. It's like taking all those messy experiences, all those lessons learned, and turning them into a valuable asset, both for yourself and for the people you're trying to help.
Okay, I'm starting to get excited about this. But let's talk about the practical side for a minute.
Yeah.
You mentioned digital products like online courses, ebooks, and membership communities.
Hmm.
Are those the only ways to monetize a micro-personal brand?
Those are definitely some of the most common and effective ways, especially when you're starting out.
Okay.
They allow you to leverage your time and reach a wider audience.
Yeah.
But Gadzhi also talks about things like coaching, consulting, and even physical products. It all depends on your niche and what makes sense for your audience.
So it's not just about creating a course and then hoping people buy it. It's about building a whole ecosystem around your expertise, offering different ways for people to engage with you and get value from what you have to offer.
You got it. And remember, with a micro-personal brand, you have the advantage of building deeper relationships with your audience. You can actually get to know them, understand their needs, and tailor your offerings to what they're really looking for.
I love that. It feels so much more authentic and fulfilling than just trying to sell something to the masses.
It's about building a community, a tribe of people who resonate with your message and want to support your journey.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening deep dive. We've gone from feeling completely overwhelmed by the world of online influencers to having a clear roadmap for building a micro-personal brand that's both profitable and fulfilling. To recap, it all comes down to Gadzhi's 3 pillars: content, packaging, and monetization.
And remember, it all starts with finding that core conflict, that thing that makes you unique and relatable. Then it's about using documentation to share your journey and insights, packaging them in a way that grabs attention, and ultimately developing your own method that you can monetize through digital products, coaching, or other offerings.
And the best part is we don't have to figure this all out on our own. Gadzhi have that free resource with templates, hook structures, and a ton of other helpful stuff. We'll make sure to include a link to that in the show notes.
It's an amazing resource, definitely worth checking out.
Now, before we wrap up, I have one final question for you. We've talked a lot about Iman Gadzhi and his strategies.
Right.
But what about the rest of us? We might not be 20-year-old entrepreneurial rock stars, but can we really apply these same principles and build something meaningful?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Remember, Gadzhi's story is just one example. There are countless others out there who are building successful micro-personal brands in all sorts of niches.
So it's not about trying to be the next Iman Gadzhi. It's about finding your own unique path and sharing your own unique story with the world.
Exactly. And that's what makes this so exciting.
Yeah.
Anyone can do this. You don't need a fancy degree or a ton of money to get started. All you need is a willingness to be authentic, a commitment to providing value, and a little bit of creativity.
So as a final thought for our listeners, I want to leave you with this challenge. What's your conflict? What's that thing you've struggled with, learned from, and overcome? And how can you use that experience to help others and build your own micro-personal brand?
Remember, the world is waiting to hear your story. Don't be afraid to share it.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and we'll see you next time for another exploration into the world of knowledge and ideas.